Hey everybody, this is Blake here. I'm here to talk about the most anticipated movie of 2012, LOL, starring Miley Cyrus. I'm just kidding. I'm going to be reviewing The Avengers, and this was a movie that could not afford to fail. It had to be awesome. It had to be epic. And with the previous Marvel films, I loved Iron Man, I liked Iron Man 2 and Thor, and I was okay with Captain America and the Incredible Hulk. But I loved this movie. I thought it was spectacular. It was everything I wanted out of this kind of summer blockbuster. For one, the action, no flaws whatsoever. The special effects are amazing. There was never a point where I thought something looked too CGI or too phony. Well, the Hulk is still in effect. I don't think they've fully mastered. Let me just move this a little bit. But they gave the Hulk a personality, and none of the previous Hulk films that I've seen really had that angle nailed down. The only time the effects for the Hulk really amazed me was with the 2003 Hulk, but that was only because that was a new groundbreaking effect. Even though they actually did improve with the Incredible Hulk, it still looked just CGI. And by that now, I was more used to that kind of CGI, and but this one, it still looks like a CGI effect. But since they give the Hulk personality, it was sort of like Gollum, where I really didn't care that it looked like CGI. I thought they did a great job with that character, so I saw it as a character, not just a special effect. And the action, there's never any overly shaky moment. I saw it in 2D, so I don't know if the 3D version really messed that up or not. I heard mixed things on that. But I could see everything perfectly. It was all very stylish, framed beautifully, and the editing with the battles was just, made them very exciting, very intense, and yeah, they were just fully enjoyable. I never was disappointed with any of the action sequences. Whereas with all the previous Marvel films, it was back and forth. Like, I loved the action in the first Iron Man, but I felt the final fight was kind of generic. And for the second Iron Man, I felt the final fight was too short. But with this one, even though there really isn't a final fight, I did not find that unsatisfying for some reason. I thought the final battle was just so spectacular that the lack of final showdown didn't bug me at all. They did a great job at balancing the screen time amongst all the characters. This is where I thought the movie would screw up the most. I thought you can't just have all these guys have the right amount of screen time, I guess, because like certain characters like Tony Stark, for example, I'd say are far more interesting than the others, so the movie's naturally going to favor them. I never had that problem. Everybody had enough characterization to where I cared for them, and they all had a purpose, a function. Tony Stark, for example, yeah, he has the funniest moments, but that's only because his character is supposed to be really witty and sarcastic, and you'd expect that from him. But his function in the group is sort of as the brains, whereas Captain America, he's much more reliable, and he's pretty much the leader by the end of the movie. And I thought that was really cool because that makes sense. Captain America would be the leader of the Avengers, and I've never read the comics, so I don't know if that's how it is in those, but. And Thor, I got the impression that Thor was the most powerful of them, but, since he's kind of hot-headed and arrogant, it balances that out. He's more powerful than everybody else, but not too much more powerful than everybody else. And Hulk I kind of looked at as both the trump card and the wild card. He could be their enemy or their best ally. And they use him really effectively. And the characters who I was figuring would be dismissed the most were Black Widow and Hawkeye, played by Scarlett Johansson and Jeremy Renner. I don't remember how you pronounce his name. But, since they don't really have superpowers or any kind of great technology on their side, I figured they'd be kind of generic and lame compared to everybody else. But no, they kind of filled in the cracks. On one hand, they were really smart. They had a lot more skills beyond fighting and shooting weapons, and they somehow really worked within that team. And that's, once again, what I loved about it, is that it was about them as a team, and nobody really stole the nobody really stole the show from everybody else. I was satisfied with how everybody was handled. And so they did a great job there. I like how you do see their personalities remain intact. You know, Tony Stark is a narcissist. Can't talk very good today. Captain America is still the stoic soldier, the perfect soldier, I guess, in a way that makes him the most boring character. Thor is still arrogant and hot-headed, like I said before, and you know, Bruce Banner is the most likable of them. You know, everybody seems to get along with him. But you could see all their personalities carry over from the previous films, but it doesn't rely too much on the previous films either. So I really like that. I thought the actors all do a great job. This movie is hilarious. I loved how the humor was executed in this movie. I constantly laughed at the dialogue, the situations, the sight gags. There's this one part involving Hulk and Thor at the very end that just cracked me the fuck up. And yet it never became a farce. It never became too much of a parody. When the movie does become a little bit more dramatic and sad, and admittedly this is sort of where the film kind of rushes itself, it never felt like a betrayal of the tone. And when they go into more comical moments after those moments, they still worked. I thought this had a very breezy pace. It had the perfect structure too. One thing I think the main problem with most of the previous Marvel films is they just had really awkward and clumsy structures. For example, with Iron Man 2, this is where I expected the Avengers to suffer from. It just had too much going on. It was too convoluted, whereas I like the simplicity of the previous film. And with Thor, it had a great first act, but could never really match that first act when it came to the second and third acts. Captain America spent way too much time on the build-up, and while yes, this did make me care for the character, it just made everything sort of slow, and so when it starts to get going, it almost seems really rushed from then on. And what was the last? Oh, The Incredible Hulk. You know, there was no problems with that film in terms of structure or narrative. It was just really, really, really stupid. And if that is based off the comic books, I'd have to say that the comic books must be really, really stupid. But at least that movie was entertaining, so I didn't dislike it. And but this one, I mean, it starts off, I guess, a little slow. A lot of people complained about that, but I didn't really have this problem. I thought the characters were interesting enough, and the dialogue was funny enough that I was interested throughout the first act. But once it starts going, it's like everything you want it to be. You know, the bantering and back and forth between the characters. We're just watching them play off each other, and then the action scenes are just so epic in scope. The shit you see in the trailers is literally just the tip of the iceberg. And that's what I really loved about it, is that, you know, at its core, it's just about these people and watching them interact, but it's also about these hardcore, epic action sequences. And this might be my favorite comic book movie ever made. But at the same time, I don't want to say that it's a great movie. For example, The Dark Knight, I'd say that is a great movie. But this one is much more about your own personal reaction to it. Because really, when you think about it, there isn't a whole lot of plot here. The character development is very subtle, but it does sort of rely on the previous movies. But like I said, not too much. But you know, at the same time, I think if you just watch this without watching any of the others, you'd probably say it's kind of shallow and dumb. But it's hard to say. I've heard so many different opinions on this film, and really the only thing I hear the most of is that this movie is entertaining. And but I think that you have to just go on expecting an enjoyable experience, but don't expect a great movie, because I think you're setting yourself up for disappointment then. I hope I explained that well enough. And that's all I really saw it. I thought it was a very entertaining movie. I had a blast with it. I laughed a lot. There's one... I'm going to leave this to the end because I had to sort of spoil it, but I'll warn you before then. But when there's this one great sequence that worked dramatically that I thought was really clever and creative. But for the most part, the movie never forgets that it just wants to be breezy, exciting fun. And that's why I think it works so well. This is probably my favorite movie of 2012. so far anyway. And I think it's awesome that Joss Whedon, who I never particularly cared all that much for in the past, he's made two of my favorite movies of the year, this and The Cabin in the Woods, although he didn't direct that one. But definitely give this movie a look, even though you probably have already seen it. I saw it in 2D, so I don't know if you want to see it in 3D or not. I heard mixed things on it. If you want to read my written review, just check the links in my description and follow me on Twitter and all that good stuff. So I'm going to be spoiling one little bit here, so if you want to leave, I do it now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I loved the death of Coulson. I thought that was so just brilliantly written, in that the guy who really connected all of these movies together, his death is what brings these characters together to start working as a team. I thought that was just, it's understated, but at the same time, brilliant, and I loved how they used that. And I hope they don't screw it up by revealing that he survived, because apparently there have been some interviews that suggest that he could have survived. But that would just cheapen that whole sequence so much, and I hope they don't do that. I think how he died was so well done that it would almost be a disgrace to the character by having him survive. But that was all I wanted to say. I love that element. I hope they don't screw it up in future installments. And I'm really looking forward to more Marvel movies now. I want to see Iron Man 3, Thor 2, Captain America 2, even a sequel to The Incredible Hulk if they actually make it, just so I could see an Avengers 2. So that is all I have to say. I'll see you guys later.